A year or so into my spiritual journey, I woke up after seeing the soul leave a woman's body after a car crash. I was asleep in a taxi, the woman came through the windscreen. I remember hearing my heartbeat in my head. It was like going boom. I was just crying uncontrollably. It was intense. It was very, very, very intense. So out of body experiences, what are they? How do you have them? Who has them? And can you induce an out-of-body experience? And can you induce an out-of-body experience at will? I used to be a total non-believer. I didn't used to believe in any of this stuff, this spiritual stuff, let alone bringing your light from your body, your consciousness from your body, your spirit, and traveling out from your body in the multi-dimensional playing fields. I remember back in 2006-ish, I was a year or so into my spiritual journey. I woke up after seeing the soul leave a woman's body after a car crash. I was asleep in a taxi, the woman came through the windscreen, got flipped over the car and died, and when I got out of the car I saw a soul leave her body. This took me on a journey. Around the same sort of time I met my first spiritual teacher, and about a year into going to see her, I mean, she taught me so much, but she gave me this book, and the book was called The Traveller, and it was written by a guy called John 12 Hawkes. It was a really small book. I read it in less than a day, and it was about these two brothers. I know one was called Christian, I forget the name of the other guy, but anyway, these travelers could bring their consciousness out from their body and go traveling, and they could go into different places, walk through walls, travel wherever they wanted to go to. And they were deemed dangerous by the brethren, and they were hunted by the brethren, and the brethren were like the government in this book. Anyway, she gave me this book, and I was like, I phoned her up. I said, when can I go traveling? She said, you better come round. So anyway, so I went round to her house, and she sat me down in the chair that she always sat me down in when she regressed me into many, many different past lives. And she took me through this process. I was breathing, my eyes were open, I was slowing my heart rate right down and slowing my breathing right down, and my brain waves were slowing down. And she took me into this real kind of like altered state whilst I was awake. It's the only way I can describe it. And I remember hearing my heartbeat in my head. It was like going boom, boom. Like it was really, it was even slower than that. And she guided me out through my heart. She brought my consciousness into this space and asked me to step forwards. And I was just in the space. And I turned around and looked at my body. And I was like, the crazy thing is, when you come out of your body in an experience like this, you still have your thought process. So I was looking at myself sat in the chair, and I looked around at her, and I'm in the room, just as I would be if I was standing as a human being. But I was frequency, consciousness. And when I walked, it felt like I was walking in my body. It didn't really feel like my body was over there, it felt like I was in my body. It was strange. But I could walk through walls and just go places really quickly, just by thinking a certain place. Anyway, in this first experience, I went back to my house and watched my ex-wife with the kids through the kitchen wall. And anyway, had this experience. I came back. When I was coming back to her place, I was in this main room outside the room that she was in with my body. And I saw these two little girls. And these two little girls were twins, and they were in white dresses, and they looked really pretty, black hair, their hair was sort of in pigtails, and they looked at me and they had these really sharp teeth, and I was like, whoa. She goes, come back. So I went back through the wall, went in front of my body. I turned my light around so my back was to the chair where my body was sat, and I kind of sat back down into my body. And the integration process back in was really smooth, it was really simple, which wasn't in other experiences like this. But on this particular experience, I sat down back in my body, and I kind of came around, and I wasn't like just 100% Jerry again. I was a bit like, whoa, a bit kind of sort of, you know, not 100% there. Anyway, I said, who are these little girls? So we went in and spoke to them. And a few years before this, I had a property business with some friends, and the property business went pear-shaped, lost everything. All of our clients lost everything. And it turned out that these two little girls were the daughters of a man who was one of our clients. And he was married, and the two daughters had a mum. And what had actually happened is the man, he was beside himself after losing his investment, so he left. And the mum, she ended up, after a little while, she was completely cracked. No husband, no money. She gassed herself in a car with her two children, these two girls. And they were stuck in the in-between world because they died very suddenly, and their spirit was stuck, their soul was stuck, like in the fourth dimension, this fourth dimensional space. And I'd never had an experience like this, didn't know anything about this. Anyway, that night I was at home reading a book to my daughter in bed. I think she must have been a few years old at the time. And I looked up and the two little girls were at my daughter's bedroom door. And so I phoned this lady back up, who was my spiritual teacher. And I said, listen, those girls are in the room. She said, you better come round tomorrow. It was late in the evening. So I went round the next day, and we went in a very sort of special process that she took me through into what she called the in-between world, which I would call fourth dimension. And we went into this space, and there was this, it was like a cave. And in this cave were all of these souls that were stuck. And we put these kind of suits of light on, and she took me in, and we found this kind of door, which was like a portal. We opened it up. On the other side, we saw the mum. She'd made it through. And she was waiting, like on a bench. So we ended up taking the little girls through and reunited them, which was a very emotional process. And yeah, I mean, the whole process was emotional, crazy, knowing what had happened with the man, the woman, the children, you know, suicides. It was the whole process of learning and an experience. It taught me so much. So that was the first out-of-body experience I had. The next out-of-body experience I had was a similar controlled experience, and I used the same kind of protocols that she taught me. I was in New Zealand, a little space pod with a blue Lyran being had landed in the garden. I was meditating in a pyramid. I brought my light out of my body, went and got inside the spacecraft, and we flew through a portal. I landed above water next to a beach, got out, walked up the beach, met these Lyrans, had an amazing kind of reconnection with my extraterrestrial family, or one of them anyway. And they took me to meet what I would call an elder in this light constructed pyramid, which was incredible and very transformational, because I had a download of geometrical code, which wasn't the solid geometry that you get in textbooks. Here, this fluid moving geometry that ended up becoming star magic, our healing frequency that we've trained thousands of people in all over the world. But I had this experience and came back. That was the second time, and that was a controlled experience. The next time it happened was not controlled, and it was very different. It was amazing, but at the same time kind of weird, strange and traumatic. This was around 2014. I'd moved back from New Zealand to the UK, and my ex-wife and I were going for a bit of a rough patch, and I moved out of the house for a little while, and I came back home one evening to have dinner with her and the children. And afterwards I'm sat in the lounge talking to her, and it dawned on me that I'd never loved myself. And when I'd realised this and kind of had this kind of realisation and acceptance, something happened. And it was like I became ever so present, and this wave of energy came through the living room and it put me on my back. The next thing, there was no kind of process to this. Suddenly I was up and I was everywhere, and I wasn't in my body. I had no even recollection of my body. It was like I knew that I was out in the universe, but I didn't know that I'd left my body, if that makes sense. I knew that I'd kind of been put down and I was laying back on the sofa, and then suddenly I was just somewhere. But it wasn't like I was somewhere, it was like I was everywhere. And it was beautiful. And I just remember I still had this kind of level of thought, but it was so expansive that I couldn't focus it anywhere. It was like my thought was in a gazillion places at the same time. And I just remember feeling this immense amount of love and beautiful energy that I have no words for, really. And it was a similar love that I'd experienced when I met the Lyrans, when I went in the spacecraft. The next thing I know, I'm in the road, outside the house, sweating, crying my eyes out, taking all my clothes off, because I was so hot, like I was gonna burn up. So I don't know how I got from the lounge to outside, but I was there. I asked my ex-wife, Laura, how it happened, and she said that I was just crying uncontrollably. I was so emotional. I went into the kitchen, then I opened the front door and was sat on the step, and then got up off the step and went out into the road. And I was just like uncontrollably emotional. Then the next thing, somehow my light came back into my body and I'm outside. So I don't know whether my light came into the body whilst I was lying on the sofa, and I have no recollection of what happened in between, but it was like I'd been 24 rounds with Mike Tyson. I was bashed up. It was intense. It was very, very, very intense. I wasn't scared by this situation, but it was different. And it's the only time that that's ever happened to me like that. I've had other out-of-body experiences where I've just brought my light from my body and I've traveled and I've got lost. I've sort of been jumping through dimensions, and I remember one time I was in this like old building and I was climbing through windows. It was like an old school or something where the windows were broken. It was kind of derelict. And I'm climbing through all these different rooms, and I remember looking around and thinking, shit, where am I? And I just remember what this lady, my first spiritual teacher, had taught me. She said, if you are ever anywhere traveling, just remember to have that level of awareness to think home, to think body. And you kind of anchor that program in before you go traveling. So I just thought body, and boom, I was back. I've had a few experiences like that. I've been taking people on guided meditations that have not come back, and I've had to go in and find them. And again, that's a skill set which anyone can teach and anyone can learn. Being able to come out of your body and travel is a skill set that anyone can learn. It's very important not to be scared of the up and coming situation. You've got to be up for it. You've got to be committed to it, and you've got to be calm about it. And it's very strange, you're out and you're there. And then there's this separation. But the very strange thing for me, and she didn't ever tell me this, she didn't say to me, when you leave your body, you're going to be able to think just like you do when you're in your body. I'm thinking I'm just going to be frequency and not really be able to think and not really know how to navigate. But once I came out of my body, I had exactly the same thought processes than when I was in my body on pretty much all of the occasions, apart from that one when I popped out of my body and I was just, I don't know, maybe I was with God, I don't know, the universe, source, but it was magical. So what I've realized, remembered, not really learned, but remembered, because there's nothing really to learn. You just have to remember the stuff that is, a part of your soul experience, a part of your own soul technology, the ability to communicate telepathically, travel multidimensionally, use telekinesis, heal at distance, all of these superhuman skill sets that all of us have the ability to remember and activate. One thing that having these out-of-body experiences taught me, and one thing that going into all of these past life experiences taught me or helped me remember, was how to communicate efficiently with beings in other dimensional spaces. And when you realize that they can talk just like we can, even though it's telepathic, they have these kind of thought constructs like us, and they can just have a level conversation. So when you encounter some other being, you can just talk to, like you're talking to me, or I'm talking to you, or you're talking to your mum, your dad, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your son, your daughter, your best mate. It's just a normal conversation. And the thing is, when you move into those multi-dimensional playing fields, it doesn't matter if an extraterrestrial speaks a different language. It's like going and seeing someone from China or Japan or Germany or France. They speak a different language. but there's a level of resonance and a level of vibration. And when you communicate with multidimensional beings, I can speak in English and they'll understand me. They can speak in their language and I'll understand them, because we're speaking vibrational current to vibrational current, harmonic to harmonic, musical instrument to musical instrument. So it's a download of geometrical data, and you kind of understand it through this different level of access. Any human being can remember how to communicate with other beings. Any human being can remember how to have an out-of-body experience. Any human being can remember how to travel into other dimensional fields to get knowledge, wisdom, information from the so-called past and the so-called future, because everything's happening simultaneously beyond this vibrational space, beyond this physical form, beyond these solid objects. When everything's vibration in these higher dimensional fields, and that's not really the right thing to say, because even our physical bodies are vibration. They're just vibrating at a lower density. But when you move up through the frequency bands into a higher density, when everything's vibrating and oscillating faster and everything's lighter, there's just this fluid tapestry of data, and everything's now. There is no past and future. It's just unfolding. You know, you could see someone walking down a corridor, but you see them at the start of the corridor, the middle of the corridor, the end of the corridor, and all the space in between. And you also don't see them at all, because you can choose your perception. I can choose to see them or not see them. Everywhere we are in this reality, there's other dimensional fields within the same space. Buildings, cities, beings, trees, rivers, all sorts of stuff going on a different vibrational rate. And just most people can't see it. But when you start playing beyond the veil, you start tapping the veil very easily. You know, when I first started this journey, it was a little bit more difficult for me to access the data. Now, if I want to go in to facilitate the healing on a client with a liver, okay, and I need to find out what the root cause of that is. I need to go and find out the reality field and the experience that soul had, whether it's from this lifetime or another one, that created the trauma and the pattern and the program that is creating the physical symptom in this now space. If I want to tap that reality field, I used to have to close my eyes and breathe deeply and kind of go in, cross over. Now I can just grab that piece of information, because the veil is thinner. There's no crossover anymore. Me and the quantum field are one. This whole living library, this whole universal database of knowledge and wisdom, of frequency, of code, is accessible to us all. And we're all powerful. We're all multidimensional. And we all have access. And for you to gain that access, you just got to spend a little bit of time in silence. Spend a little bit of time on your own, turn your phone off, get away from the noise. Going into nature is brilliant. Nature teaches you so much, or nature helps you remember so much. When you sit in the silence with the trees and the flowers and maybe a little bit of running water, and you spend time there with your shoes and your socks on, in the dirt, your senses change. Those 5 senses that we've been conditioned with, they just disappear. You become a sense. You become one great big sense that can just pick up data. You're like this incredible crystalline antenna that just reads frequency and code. And a simple question is like an arrow. You fire it, it hits its target, and it draws back the data. Questions are so important. Good questions get you good answers. And when you play in the multidimensional playing fields, having this ability to just think and communicate enables you to fire these arrows wherever you want and access whichever data streams you require to help you with whatever situation you're finding yourself entangled with. Whether that be a situation in your own personal life or a situation with a client that you're healing, business issue. Through that God spark within, we have full access, full memory. Just takes a little bit of waking up and training. Like if you don't go to the gym and work your muscles, they're gonna get small and weak. If you don't run and sprint, your lungs are gonna become useless. When you don't work your pineal gland, when you don't work your right brain, when you don't fire up these multi-dimensional faculties, they're like a muscle, they get weak and lazy. So you've got to utilize them. So the more you utilize them, the more they fire up. And that's on you just to take a little bit of responsibility. We're all powerful, sovereign beings. We can all have out-of-body experiences. We can all trigger them at will. It just takes a certain mindset, a certain heart set, a certain level of courage, a certain level of commitment. And boom, you're on the other side, baby. Which isn't really the other side, it's the same side. It's just a different vibration. If you want to understand more about spirituality, energy healing, multi-dimensional elements of this incredible fractalized universe, if you want to understand about the pyramids, if you want to know about multi-dimensional travel, meditation, everything you need to be a high frequency being, if you want to understand the true mystery school teachings, sign up to this channel. Click the button, press the bell, get notified when new videos are made. Share this video with your friends and your family, and go and grab a friend and get them to watch this so that you can talk about this with someone close to you. Sometimes this journey is a little bit lonely, so grab a friend, grab a loved one, and bring them along for the ride. And if you can't find anyone, go to starmagichealing.com, sign up to Infinity. It's free for 7 days. You can get access to our private Telegram groups and meet beautiful souls just like you on this same soul mission. You can get access to hundreds of guided meditations, light language transmissions, light codes, cosmic yoga videos, mystery school teachings, high frequency nutrition, breath work, you name it, we got it going on. Everything you need to go on your ascension journey, to be the very best version of you that you can be. Go out into this world, beautiful soul. Be strong, be fierce. Love your sisters and your brothers fiercely and ferociously. Hug them tightly and never, ever, ever be the first to let go. That's the golden rule of hugging. I'll see you again real soon. Have fun, be a little bit crazy, and enjoy this human ride. One love, one heart, one human family. Peace out, beautiful soul.